Have you ever wondered why you always choose the same type of relationship? Why you repeat the same mistakes at work? Why, no matter how many times you promise to change, you end up back at square one? You're not alone in this experience. Millions of people around the world live trapped in cycles that seem impossible to break. The answer to this mystery is hidden in the depths of your mind, and curiously, the Bible warned about this thousands of years ago, long before modern psychology existed. What are behavior patterns? Patterns are like invisible tracks that guide our actions without us noticing. They operate silently backstage in our consciousness, directing our choices, reactions, and even our thoughts. Carl Jung, one of the fathers of modern psychology and Freud's dissident disciple, said something profoundly revealing: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you said it's my destiny or I was born this way to justify repetitive behaviors? Our patterns begin forming very early, in childhood and adolescence. They're like programs we install in our mental operating system when we still didn't have the maturity to question whether these programs were healthy or not. A child who grows up in an environment where love is conditional learns they need to behave in a certain way to be accepted. This pattern can manifest decades later in adult relationships where the person completely erases themselves to please their partner. These patterns function as automatic responses to recurring situations. They are emotional survival mechanisms we developed to deal with the world when we were vulnerable. The problem is that these mechanisms, which were once useful, often become prisons in adult life. It's like wearing the same clothes you wore at 10 years old. They simply don't fit anymore, but you keep trying to wear them because they're familiar. Modern neuroscience confirms what Jung intuited: our brain creates true neural highways for repeated behaviors. Each time you react the same way to a situation, you strengthen these connections. That's why patterns become increasingly automatic over time. Your brain is literally being sculpted by your repeated experiences and reactions. The Bible already knew this human tendency to repeat the same mistakes. In Proverbs 26 verse 11 we read, "As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly." A strong and even uncomfortable image, but one that perfectly illustrates how we return to the same destructive behaviors, even knowing they harm us. Ancient wisdom already understood that there's something in human nature that pulls us back to what's familiar, even when it's harmful. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, spent years studying this phenomenon and called it repetition compulsion, an unconscious tendency to recreate painful situations in the hope of finally resolving them. It's as if our psyche said, "This time will be different, this time I'll manage to fix it." But we rarely do, because we're using the same mental tools that created the original problem. Freud observed this repeatedly in his patients. A woman who had an absent and cold father invariably chose emotionally distant men. A man who suffered rejection in childhood created situations where he was rejected again in adult life. Freud realized it wasn't coincidence, it was the unconscious trying to rewrite history, trying to obtain a different ending for an old script. But why do we do this? There are several deep and interconnected reasons. First, because we prefer the familiar, even if it's painful. This may seem contradictory, but the human brain is programmed to seek predictability. The known, even if it's bad, is less threatening than the unknown. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. When you grow up in a chaotic environment, for example, chaos becomes your comfort zone. Peaceful and stable relationships may even seem boring or suspicious to someone accustomed to drama and turbulence. This preference for the familiar has evolutionary roots. Our ancestors who recognized and avoided known dangers had better chances of survival. The brain developed a system that rewards predictability with feelings of comfort, even when what's predictable isn't healthy. That's why people return to abusive relationships, toxic employers, or addictions. There's a disturbing comfort in the familiarity of known suffering. Second, we carry limiting beliefs formed in the past. These beliefs are like invisible glasses through which we see the world. If you deeply believe you're not good enough, this belief will filter all your experiences. You'll ignore evidence of competence and obsessively focus on each small failure. If you believe you don't deserve to be loved, you'll unconsciously sabotage healthy relationships or choose partners who confirm this belief. If you believe you always fail, you'll find ways to transform even successes into failures. These beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies, predictions that become true simply because we believe them. A student who believes they're bad at math won't try as hard, will be more anxious during tests and, consequently, will perform worse, confirming their original belief. It's a vicious cycle fed by the mind itself. Third, unresolved traumas continue influencing the present in ways we don't always perceive. Bessel van der Kolk, one of the world's leading trauma experts, wrote a revolutionary book called The Body Keeps the Score. He demonstrated that traumatic experiences aren't just memories stored in the brain, they're registered in the body, in the nervous system, altering how we react to the world. A person who suffered abandonment in childhood may have a disproportionate panic reaction when a partner arrives 10 minutes late. A child who grew up in a violent environment may enter fight or flight mode in the face of normal, resolvable conflicts. Unresolved trauma functions like a faulty alarm that goes off with inappropriate frequency and intensity. Van der Kolk discovered that trauma literally changes brain structure, affecting areas like the amygdala, fear center, hippocampus, memory, and prefrontal cortex, decision-making. These changes explain why traumatized people have difficulty controlling emotions, trust others less, and have exaggerated reactions to specific triggers. The Apostle Paul perfectly described this internal struggle in Romans 7 verse 15. I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do I do not do, but what I hate I do. This battle between intention and action is universal and timeless. Paul was describing what modern psychology calls cognitive dissonance, the painful conflict between what we know is right and what we actually do. How many times have you caught yourself doing exactly what you promised never to do again? How many times have you sworn that this time will be different only to find yourself in the same place weeks later? This is the human experience described 2,000 years ago and still completely relevant today. Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz, offers us a transformative perspective. Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Frankl developed this philosophy while facing the most inhumane conditions imaginable. He realized that even when everything is taken from you, your freedom, your dignity, your possessions, there still remains one freedom that no one can take away, the freedom to choose how you respond to what happens to you. This realization not only helped him survive but became the foundation of logotherapy, his therapeutic approach. The key to breaking patterns lies in expanding this space of choice. The more conscious you become of your automatic patterns, the larger this space becomes. It's like slowing down a movie scene to see each frame individually. You gain the ability to intervene before the pattern completes itself. Some patterns appear so frequently in people's lives that they've become almost archetypal. Let's explore the most prevalent and destructive ones. In relationships, one of the most painful patterns is choosing emotionally unavailable partners. It's the person who repeatedly falls in love with someone who's married, committed, or simply incapable of emotional intimacy. This pattern usually has roots in childhood. Perhaps one parent was emotionally distant, and the child learned that love means pursuing someone who's never fully present. There's a cruel dynamic in this pattern. The person feels intensely attracted to the uncertainty and challenge of conquering someone emotionally inaccessible. When they finally get that person's attention, interest diminishes. And when they meet someone emotionally available and healthy, they feel bored or lack chemistry. What's really lacking isn't chemistry, it's the familiar drama of impossible pursuit. Another common relational pattern is the cycle of idealization and devaluation. At the beginning of the relationship, the person idealizes their partner, seeing them as perfect and extraordinary. But as reality inevitably appears and the partner reveals their normal human imperfections, brutal devaluation occurs. The partner goes from perfect to disappointing with no middle ground. This pattern makes lasting relationships practically impossible because no one can maintain the illusion of perfection forever. Self-sabotage is another devastating pattern affecting millions of people. It manifests in various forms: people who give up when they're about to achieve an important goal, who chronically procrastinate on crucial projects, or who literally find ways to destroy what they've built with so much effort. A student who prepared intensely for an important exam suddenly stops studying in the last week. An entrepreneur who's about to close a big deal finds a way to sabotage negotiations. A person in a weight loss process who's close to their goal starts eating compulsively. These aren't accidents or lack of willpower, they're manifestations of a part of the psyche that doesn't believe it deserves success. Self-sabotage often originates from a core belief of unworthiness. If deep down you believe you don't deserve success, happiness, or love, your unconscious mind will actively work to confirm that belief. It's like an internal thermostat set to suffering. Whenever you approach something better, an internal alarm goes off and you find ways to return to the normal state of struggle and difficulty. Thought patterns also imprison us in subtle but profound ways. Catastrophizing is always thinking about the worst possible scenario. A small mistake at work becomes "I'll be fired and run out of money and end up on the street." A minor physical symptom becomes "I have a serious disease and I'm going to die." An argument with a friend becomes "I'll lose all my relationships and be alone forever." This pattern isn't just uncomfortable, it literally shapes your reality. When you constantly anticipate catastrophes, you live in a chronic state of anxiety. Your nervous system stays permanently in alert mode, affecting your physical and mental health. And ironically, this state of hypervigilance can cause you to make hasty decisions based on fear, creating the very problems you feared. All-or-nothing thinking is another destructive mental pattern. In this mentality, there's no middle ground, either you're perfect or you're a total failure. Either the person is wonderful or terrible. Either the project is an absolute success or it's worthless. This dichotomous thinking eliminates all the nuance and complexity of reality. A person with this pattern might completely abandon a diet because they ate a slice of cake, thinking I've already ruined everything anyway. They might give up learning an instrument because they didn't progress as fast as expected. They might end relationships over minor imperfections because the partner doesn't meet an impossible ideal of perfection. Overgeneralization transforms one event into a universal rule. One mistake becomes I always fail. One rejection becomes nobody wants me. One difficulty becomes nothing works out for me. These generalizations don't just distort reality, they create a life narrative that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The Bible invites us to radical mind renewal in Philippians 4 verse 8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. This verse isn't just pious advice, it's a profound psychological prescription. Paul is saying we have the responsibility and power to consciously choose where we direct our attention. The quality of our thoughts determines the quality of our inner life, and consequently, our outer life. The good news, and there is good news, is that you can reprogram your mind. You are not condemned to repeat the same patterns forever. The neuroscience of neuroplasticity has conclusively demonstrated that the brain can change at any age. You can literally create new neural pathways and weaken old ones. But this requires intention, conscious effort, and often help. Socrates, the Greek philosopher who lived over 2,000 years ago, already said, "Know thyself." This phrase was inscribed in the Temple of Delphi and summarizes the first and most crucial step for any change: self-awareness. The first step is to develop genuine self-awareness. Observe your patterns without judgment. This is crucial, without judgment. Most people, when they start observing their patterns, immediately criticize themselves harshly. How could I be so stupid? Why do I always do this? There's something wrong with me. This judgment creates shame, and shame paralyzes change. Instead, adopt the posture of a curious scientist observing an interesting phenomenon. When you react automatically, pause and ask, when have I experienced this before? What does this remind me of? Often, you'll discover you're reacting not to the present situation but to an old one. Keep a journal of behaviors and emotions. Writing has transformative power because it externalizes internal thoughts and makes them observable. Write down situations where you reacted automatically, what you were feeling, what you were thinking, and what happened. Over time, clear patterns will emerge. The second step is to identify the pattern's root. This can be uncomfortable because it requires honestly looking at painful past experiences. Where does this pattern come from? What unmet need is it trying to fulfill? What core belief does it reflect? For example, if you have a self-sabotage pattern, the root might be a belief that you don't deserve success, formed when a critical parent constantly minimized your achievements. If you have a pattern of choosing unavailable partners, the root might be an unmet need for attention from an emotionally absent caregiver in childhood. Psalm 139 verses 23 to 24 expresses this deep inner search. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. This is an invitation to radical vulnerability, asking for the most hidden parts of ourselves to be revealed. It requires courage because we don't always like what we find. But we can only transform what we can see. The third step is to intentionally create new neural pathways. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, is one of the most hopeful discoveries of modern neuroscience. It proves you're not stuck with patterns from the past. The brain is malleable, capable of change, at any age. But change doesn't happen magically. You need to consciously practice new behaviors repeatedly. Conscious repetition forms new habits and strengthens new neural pathways. They say it takes 21 days to start a new habit, but more recent studies suggest profound changes can take 66 to 90 days to consolidate. William James, considered the father of American psychology, wrote something powerful about habit formation: sow an action and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. This progression is fundamental to understand. Each small conscious action you take against an old pattern is a seed. You may not see results immediately, but you're planting something. With repetition, these actions become habits. Over time, these habits shape your character, who you fundamentally are. And your character ultimately determines your destiny. This means you don't need to make a massive transformation all at once. Small consistent changes, repeated over time, create profound transformations. It's better to make one small change every day than to attempt a huge change you can't sustain. The fourth step is to seek professional help when necessary. Our culture often glorifies the idea of doing it alone and sees asking for help as weakness. This is profoundly misguided. Seeking professional help is an act of courage, wisdom, and self-compassion. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is particularly effective for identifying and changing dysfunctional thought patterns. CBT teaches you to recognize automatic negative thoughts, question their validity, and replace them with more realistic and helpful thoughts. EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, has shown extraordinary results in treating trauma. It works by helping the brain reprocess traumatic memories so they lose their power to trigger intense reactions in the present. Support groups offer something unique: the experience of not being alone. When you hear other people describing struggles similar to yours, shame diminishes. You realize there's nothing fundamentally wrong with you. You're human, dealing with universal human issues. A qualified therapist can see patterns you can't see because you're too immersed in them. It's like trying to read the label from inside the bottle. Sometimes you need someone from outside to see clearly. The fifth step is spiritual renewal. Romans 12 verse 2 instructs us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." Authentic transformation involves not only psychological techniques but deep inner renewal. This can include spiritual practices like meditation, prayer, contemplation, or simply time in silence and connection with something greater than yourself. Many people discover that lasting changes require not only cognitively understanding their patterns but also a transformative experience of unconditional love, whether through spirituality, deeply nurturing relationships, or both. When you experience being fully known and still loved, beliefs of unworthiness begin to lose power. Carl Rogers, founder of humanistic psychology, discovered through decades of clinical practice something paradoxical. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. This paradox is fundamental. Most people think they need to hate themselves enough to change, that they need to be harsh with themselves to improve. But Rogers discovered the opposite: radical acceptance of who you are now, with all your patterns, flaws, and imperfections, is the fertile soil where genuine change can grow. When you're constantly fighting against yourself, all your energy goes to that internal war. When you accept where you are, with compassion, energy is freed for real movement. Self-acceptance isn't resignation or giving up, it's honest recognition of present reality, which is the only possible starting point for any real change. Breaking patterns isn't easy. It's like rowing against a strong current that's been carrying you in the same direction for years, perhaps decades. There will be moments of frustration when you catch yourself falling into the same old patterns. This is normal and expected. Change isn't linear, it's a process of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But each conscious choice, no matter how small, is a small act of freedom. Each time you pause before reacting automatically, you're expanding that space between stimulus and response that Viktor Frankl described. Each time you choose a more constructive thought, you're strengthening new neural pathways and weakening old ones. As Albert Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If you keep getting the same unwanted results in life, something needs to change. And that something is you, not because there's something wrong with you, but because you're operating with old programming that no longer serves you. You are not condemned to repeat your past. Your patterns don't define your future. Change begins the moment you decide to look inward with honesty and compassion, accept what you see without judgment, and consciously choose a different path. As Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 says, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." There's a time for old patterns to serve their purpose, and there's a time to let them go. Perhaps this is your time. The time to break your destructive patterns can be now. The power to choose is in your hands, at this exact moment. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. Seek knowledge, seek help, seek community, seek the divine. Seek the transformation your heart longs for. The journey of breaking patterns is also a journey of becoming more fully who you were created to be, free from the prisons of the past, capable of consciously choosing your path, living with intention instead of automatism. This is one of the most difficult journeys you can undertake, but also one of the most liberating and meaningful. Start today. Start small. But start. Because every journey, no matter how long, begins with a single conscious step.